out some ankles, some hip mobility. Hopefully these things will help you improve your squat positioning. I know for me, it's made a huge difference over my years in CrossFit in squatting and being below parallel. So the first thing I like to start with is a little bit of joint mobilization. So it's gonna be a little bit different than soft tissue work, but just to make sure things are sliding and gliding the way that they're supposed to be with our ankles, so we can work on getting our knees out in front of our toes and have a nice upright torso, hopefully in that good squat position. So I set a band up, I just hooked it around the lower part of the rig, and then you can have this plate. So this is just gonna elevate our foot slightly. So we're gonna come forward to where there's a little bit of tension on the band. We wanna make sure we don't put the band too high. So you take your two little ankle bones, and we wanna put the band just below that in the front, and we need a little bit of thickness to our band. So we're gonna put it just below those ankle bones, so you can see the band is pulling down and back, and it's gonna wanna be pulling my ankle back as I'm gonna think about my heel staying down to the ground, and I'm just gonna drive my knee forward. I like to start just by gently pulsing forward, and then I'm gonna go slightly in, and then I'm also gonna drive my knee out. So we're just hitting all angles. We don't wanna just stay with just one angle, but we wanna make sure that we're mobilizing with all the angles. Notice I am holding my heel down. I tend to have to work on my ankle mobility a lot, and we don't wanna make sure that heel doesn't pop up. So now I'm just gonna hang out. I'm just gonna use my chest to drive my knee forward, keeping my heel down, letting the band pull down and back. I'm just gonna hold there. I'll hold for 15 to 20 seconds. Feeling I should feel some really deep stretch through here. I might even feel a little bit in my arch, then I can release. And again, continuing to work on multiple angles, driving the knee out, and then you can already notice I'm already starting to get a little bit further. I can personally feel like this is starting to loosen up pretty nicely, and it hasn't even been that long yet. Good. So then I'll relax. I'll do the same thing on the opposite leg, but I like to start with, I would pulse in, pulse forward, pulse out. I hit at least 5 times each direction, and then I go into those longer holds. I'll do that all on my right leg, and then I'll follow back up on my left leg. All right, so the next one is similar to the joint mobilization, but now we're focusing less on having the distraction pulling against the joint, more on the soft tissue of the calf and the muscles surrounding and maybe the front of the shin. So you can use a box or a bench, but what I like to do is just find a box. My knee's a little bit above my hip. It's not too high though. I feel pretty comfortable here, so I can put my torso onto my knee. From here, I'm doing all of these without shoes. That's super important. Make sure you take your shoes off, whether you're barefoot or you're in socks, so you can feel the floor, and we can work on stretching all of the muscles of the foot. But I'm gonna put my foot right on the box, and I'm gonna think about now driving my knee slightly forward, again, keeping my heel down, and I can even kind of use the box to help pull my chest onto my thigh. So right now I don't feel anything in the front, which means my shins aren't too tight, but I feel all of it right down the back of my thigh, my calf and the back of my leg. So I'm just gonna hang out here, typically about 20, 30 seconds, and then I'm gonna pulse towards the inside and again towards the outside. So again, I'm just applying pressure onto my leg, thinking about letting my knee track forward out over my toes, feeling a really deep stretch. You have to be patient. You have to hang out here for a little bit to actually see some changes in the fascia. Most of us want to stretch for 20 seconds, but that doesn't actually lead to any physical changes. So you want to make sure that you're just hanging out, a good solid 60, 90 seconds. Release, and then we can come across. Same thing, just continuing. I know we never want our knees to cave inside of our toes. We're just working all angles of all of the muscles in the back of the leg. And we can drive our knee also out, just like our squat. And then continue just thinking, trying to drive your knee as far forward over your toes as you can, and applying the pressure with your chest, and also kind of pulling yourself. So I'm using my hands to almost pull myself forward, but keep my heel down. So we never want that heel to come up, because that defeats the purpose of this stretch. The other thing you can do is drop your back leg to apply just a little bit more pressure onto your front foot, and then relax. So I'll spend a solid 60 to 90 seconds on my right leg, and then I will also go into my left leg, do the exact same thing there. So I've got 3 different things here, 3 things I love to use. Softballs sometimes are better than lacrosse balls because they're obviously a little bit bigger. so it's not as painful almost in a sense. It kind of is a wider surface area. So I like to use both of these. And then I also like to start, when I'm doing my calves, I like to start with the stick. So finding a bench, whichever one you're working on, I just like to take the stick and kind of work up, always towards your heart, and just start to roll out the lower extremity and then loosening up that ankle. So I'll move back a little bit, but again, continuing just helps you kind of apply whatever pressure you need. And it's a little bit different than the foam roller. It can get to a little bit more specific area. And for me, I'm extra tight all through here, so this is where I spend a lot of my time. It's also good to just work on your shin every now and again. So if you're super tight through the front of your shin, it's also going to hinder your ankle and your squat mobility. So when I use the stick, I like to focus on the front of my shin as well as the back. I'll spend 1 to 2 minutes, maybe a minute on the back, a minute on the front, and then from there I can work into my softball. So for my softball, now I can just roll. I actually roll this side to side and up and down. So just kind of smashing out anywhere that you feel sore, kind of rolling back and forth. I'll draw some ankle circles if I feel a really sticky spot, and then switch, just going back and forth. Just continuing to work on that lower body tissue. And then the final piece, I lost my ball. I really like to work on my arches. So everything starts with the feet. So I will take this lacrosse ball and then I will just work it into my arch. And I'll spend about 60 seconds to 2 minutes just rolling through the ball of my foot and just continuing to loosen up the arch of my foot, because today we don't spend as much time barefoot, so we spend a lot of time in our shoes with all of that built-in support, and sometimes that can cause our big toe to lose its functionality, or the muscles in our feet can start to get weaker. So we just want to make sure that we're breaking up all the junk in our feet and just continuing to keep those mobile as well. So once you've worked on your joint mobilization and then you've done some soft tissue work for your ankles, the next piece is going to be to apply it into that position that we're trying to improve. So essentially our squat mobility. So I like to take this into a weighted goblet squat, and the goal is going to be to sit down in this position actively. I shift my weight from side to side, but accumulating 2, 3, 4, even up to 5 minutes at a time as we continue to progress with this movement, this exercise, and build strength in the right position. So I like to grab a kettlebell. Today I started with the 26. I'm just gonna work myself down into a squat, continuing to drive my knees out with my elbows. And then I wanna keep my heels down. So I'm just gonna spend time thinking about lifting my chest, letting my knees drive out over those toes. I'll just start in the center, and then as I get more comfortable in this position, I'm gonna think about trying to drive my weight. So right now, all of my weight is towards my right foot, thinking about driving that knee over those toes. And then I'll come back. And just continuing to build that strength in this deep squat position, working on getting those toes as close to forward as we can, and the knees tracking out over our toes. Make sure you don't have shoes on. So I was gonna say nice and barefoot, but we're just building strength in our feet outside of shoes. So taking away all the support that we rely on, making sure our big toes, right now I'm grabbing the floor with my big toe, I'm forcing my arch to be active, strengthening my feet as well as my ankle mobility, which is definitely gonna always help with our squats. These are just a couple of the exercises I like to use on a heavy squat day, maybe after a heavy squat day, just focusing on continuing to make sure we're building good movement patterns, that we're keeping our body sliding and gliding the way that it should, so we can keep ourselves injury free and then continue to build strength in these movements in the right positions. I hope these help for you. Definitely give them a try out. Comment below if anything helped, what else you want to see, and hopefully I'll be able to bring that to you in the upcoming weeks. I don't know, we'll create a video on it. Like, subscribe, check out our website. We just released a core program if you're looking to get your 6-pack before the spring gets here and bathing suit comes back around.